Life is so busy. If you blink, you can miss something amazing. It's important to take a moment and enjoy what we have and the people around us. I'm Mo Hagan, Chief Operating Officer for CanFit Pro, and welcome to A Moment with Mo, a podcast where I will welcome some incredible guests to talk fitness and nutrition, mindset and self-empowerment, setting our goals into action, and much, much more. Now let's get chatting. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode, A Moment with Mo. I'm so excited to have this conversation with all of you today and with my guest. It is all about change in seasons and change in ourselves, our businesses, and everything that is part of our self-care, our healthcare, and even our wealth care. And the conversation, of course, is in great timing with a new season. So whenever it is that you are listening into this show, it is always a time of renewal because we can choose to change up our routine anytime we wish. But it's such a great feeling to make a change with the seasons changing. So with that, of course, whether it's spring, summer, winter, fall, it's always a time of renewal. Sometimes it's growth, sometimes it's pulling back and retreating, but it is springtime and a great time for gathering your new energy and renewing your goals, checking in, and also setting some new BHAGs or big, hairy, audacious goals to move you forward. Now, my guest today is someone that keeps herself and her business moving forward in the most unique ways. I couldn't think of a better person to bring on to talk about change, talking about the importance of changing up your routine, whether it is in your business or whether it is in your fitness or your personal self-care. Also, why change is key to keeping us moving forward. So without further ado, I'd love to bring on to the show Jessie Thomas.
Hi,
Welcome,
Mo.
Jessie. And for those who haven't had the opportunity to meet my dear friend, fellow entrepreneur, and incredible leader in the fitness industry, Jessie Thomas is the creator, founder, and owner of Farm Girl Fitness. Now, if that's not a great conversation piece at this time of year to talk about Farm Girl Fitness, I can't think of a better time. Although I do hear you run all year long and have great outdoor fitness even in the winter. So thanks for saying yes to being on the show today.
So happy to be here. Thanks for thinking of me.
Well, for those who wish to learn more about you, let me start off by just sharing a bit of your incredible background. You are the creator and owner of Farm Girl Fitness. I've mentioned that. It is an indoor and outdoor fitness studio, and it focuses on wellness. It focuses on body positive coaching and also creates unique outdoor experiences. And you are located in Halton Hills, fantastic area for your business. And you have a great backstory about how Farm Girl Fitness started. But before we jump into that, I just love to let everyone know that you established your business so courageously during the summer of 2020. And everybody remembers 2020, I'm sure. And it was a way you could help your fitness community and the people that you actually, already trained and worked with in fitness, but a safe place to work out and support mental health during the summer of the first year of our pandemic. And first year. Mm-hmm. Jessie, you kept things moving by creating unique ways to work out outdoors and then eventually indoors. And you've been doing it all year long ever since. You provide small group training, classes, personal training, wellness workshops, and even team building corporate events. You've been in the industry since 2007 as a certified fitness industry specialist with CanFit Pro. You're also a great coach and a trainer of coaches. And you were named one of Impact Magazine's top fitness trainers and instructors for 2022. Now that says a lot about what you were able to accomplish during the pandemic years. So applause to that. You are also a top 3 finalist for the CanFit Pro Fitness Professional of the Year in that same year. And you were recognized in 2023 as Women Who Influence, the Sharon Mann Inspiration Award and Scholarship recipient just this past year. So I want to applaud you and everybody out there listening and watching. Give some hearts, and you're going to be able to connect with Jessie. So make sure you do and let her know your thoughts and the takeaways from today's episode. So all that say, there's a backstory, Jessie, on your reason for starting Farm Girl Fitness, and it is a really incredible family story. So would you start there and share a bit of the backstory and the why that's brought you to where you are here today with your business, Miss Entrepreneur?
For sure. Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, one that we didn't expect. I think a lot of us who have gone through these last few years would say something similar. Necessity is sometimes the mother of invention, and that was the case for us. So in 2020, when gyms closed, a lot of people lost their jobs, instructors, trainers, and I was in the same boat. And I just had to figure out something to do, had to keep myself busy, had to keep bringing money in. I needed a job, but also really needed to keep our community moving and active. And so we thought about originally hosting some workouts or some boot camps in parks once they reopened. And we may kind of forget that for a time, parks were closed during the early parts of COVID. And I was actually here at our family's farm, where I live, and have lived here for about 13 years with my husband. My parents have had the farm for about 16 years. And I was walking around here in the farm one day with a friend, and I said, yeah, I'm thinking of different parks in town, but just waiting for them to reopen. And she said, why are you waiting for parks to reopen? Why don't you just run some boot camps here at the farm? And I thought, that's crazy. Nobody's going to come. And I said, I don't think people would show up. And she said, no, I'm pretty sure people would come. You should give it a try. So needless to say, we gave it a try. June 2020 is kind of our unofficial start date. And I say that because when we started the business, we didn't really realize we were starting a business. We got into entrepreneurship thinking it was going to be very short-lived. So at the time, the rules in Ontario were that you could only have 5 people together outside. So even though we sit on 88 acres of farmland, I was only allowed to have 5 people, which means I could only have 4 participants. So we started running classes, me and 4 other people, and it went really well. People were happy and excited to come together. The rules started to change in Ontario. Suddenly we were able to have groups of 10 and then groups of 15. And before you knew it, June, July, August had passed, and we had to start looking ahead to the fall. And unfortunately, my job was not coming back, and we had to start thinking about colder weather. And so my dad, who's been an entrepreneur his whole life, said, you know what, I have an idea. How about you take the barn and convert it into an indoor studio? The barn was previously used for horses. So we used to be a horse breeding and training facility for quarter horses. Parents have been in the horse business for many, many years, but we don't have horses here at the farm anymore. And so the 16-stall horse barn was sitting empty. And my dad said, yeah, why don't you do the work and convert that space? Thankfully, I have a husband, shout out to Dan, who is very, very handy and was able to do the retrofit for us. And that involved digging out the floors, cutting out some walls, putting up some new walls, putting in heating and cooling and all kinds of good stuff. And in November of 2020, we were able to open the first indoor studio, which used to be 4 horse stalls. Unfortunately, in Ontario, the next gym shutdown happened in early January of 2021. So our indoor studio that we had worked so hard on was only open for 2 months, and then it had to close.
Oh.
So that was a bit of a punch in the gut. But we had another idea from my dear old dad, who said, what if you found a way to work around the rules? And what if we turned our outdoor facility, which we call the round pen, into a workout area? Now, that round pen used to be used for horses too, ironically for horse exercise. And now we use it for exercise. A round pen, you can see it on our website. It's like a giant gazebo. And so it was covered on the top, but open air on the sides. And outdoor workouts in the winter, as all Canadians I'm sure can agree, the hardest part is cold feet, wet feet, and kind of being in the harsh, the elements. But if you could protect people from that, then being in cold temperatures wasn't so bad. So I went to the members that we had at the time and I said, listen, I know this sounds nuts, but are you willing to give it a try? Because it's either this or just online, which we had been doing the whole time. But people at that point were just done with online things. And so they said, okay, we'll give it a try. So we set up things like TRX suspension trainers. We had weights and tires and climbing ropes and all kinds of fun things that we installed in the round pen. We installed lights in there so that we could host classes even in the evening when, it's dark around here at like 4:30. We'd have a bonfire waiting for everybody outside when they came and when they left so that they could stay a little longer and hang out with people. And that basically got us through. That idea from my dear old dad helped us to survive and make it through multiple shutdowns. So that was January 2021. We flipped to outdoor. The coldest workouts we would do were up to minus 15 Celsius. If it was colder than that, we shut her down. People they loved it. And today we still have a lot of members that were here for that, and they have warm, fuzzy memories about that time period. We made it work, but we had shutdowns again that actually resulted in a full, even outdoor fitness shutdown in the spring of 2021, which emotionally was probably the hardest one for me. And I remember just crying, literally just crying, watching the news. That thankfully was short-lived. Reopened again, decided we need to expand. This one studio we have, which is about 800 square feet, was not going to be enough. And so we ended up deciding to renovate another area of the barn and create a second indoor studio. That was ready to open for January 1st, 2022. But that was actually the date of our last gym shutdown in Ontario, which thankfully was short-lived, only about 4 weeks. And so Studio 2 opened in February of 2022.
Wow.
And that studio's been open ever since. So we don't do outdoor winter workouts on the regular. They're more specialty things that we do. Typically New Year's Day, we have a kind of a celebration of outdoor workouts to kind of celebrate our roots. And, but we are indoor, outdoor when it comes to spring, summer, and fall. And here we are. We've made it.
Wow. I think you're the only one that remembers the dates of closures and openings as well as you do, because your whole business was shaped by those openings and closures.
Yeah.
And secondly, to be that entrepreneurial, I mean, it's all in the family, which must feel so special that, because everyone knows how hard an entrepreneur has to work and the sacrifices they make, especially with family. But when you've got the family involved, it's not like sacrificing, you're all just coming together. So I'm sure that will be a legacy within your family forever.
Definitely.
And redefining. I mean, one, you remind me why, when the going gets tough, it's the tough who get going. And you're also such an inspiration to all entrepreneurs, and perfectly timed with our conversation today around how you keep moving yourself forward and why change is key to moving yourself forward. Sometimes change is forced upon us, but that also inspires us. Or do you think, Jessie, that inspires us? We can do what we had to do then. It's amazing what we can do now and choose to do versus be forced to do, and renew our energy around that ability to create things that you never thought possible.
Yeah, there's definitely things where you look back and you feel that you were kind of pushed into a corner, so to speak. Again, necessity, mother of invention. And that at times just kind of feels like survival. It doesn't feel like bravery. It doesn't feel like being creative. It doesn't feel like any of those positive spins that we'll put on it after the fact. It's only looking back that you realize that change was an act of courage, bravery, inspiration, all those good things. But in the moment, it just feels like survival. And, of course, if we can choose change under much better circumstances, yes, that feels a lot better. But looking back, every single time there was a setback, we kind of, and I say we, myself, my husband, my family, because they truly, truly are a part of this, is we were able to look at every time we had a setback, what's the opportunity that lies within the setback? And there was one, at least one, if not multiple things, every single time. And if there's something I'm grateful for with all of that over the last few years, is that it's trained me now to every time I hit a roadblock to say, where's the opportunity lying that I'm just not seeing yet? And sometimes the shutdown, gave me time. Sometimes the shutdown, not being able to teach in a way I usually did, that gave me time to get training for my business or to spend time on education or other things that maybe I wouldn't have had time otherwise. So yeah, if you can look for those opportunities while the things are good, take that time. It can feel a lot better.
And that is evidence that gives you confidence to look for those opportunities, even when things are going well, because we can all take from what we learned about ourselves and what was possible when everything seemed impossible back then. And you said such amazing lessons for life. With setbacks come opportunities, giving yourself space, sometimes even when you weren't expecting that time off, to then step into reflection. And the other thing too is the importance that there's always an opportunity in everything. We just have to sometimes look forward. And what you didn't say in this moment, but what you said earlier, which I'd love to share with everyone, is you didn't go alone. I mean, I'm sure that Jessie, I know for myself, sometimes when you're just feeling like you don't know what that one thing is, that we don't have to just suffer alone. We can reach out for insights and guidance and wisdom from dear old dad, or from our spouses, from our community, and from those that care about us and those that we know will tell us how things are and what, sometimes remind us what we're capable of when we don't see it for ourselves.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned that your community around you, your members, your friend, your dad, your husband, all gave you that sort of idea, and then you just got to cultivate it with your entrepreneurial spirit that perhaps was sitting ready for this moment.
Yeah, it's true. Having the support really makes a big difference. And I think it's a potential flaw of entrepreneurs as they continue, is that they, as much as they had support or will always have support in their community, they tend to become isolated or individualistic almost, where especially if you're something that's like the face of a brand, or you're the main one making choices and decisions and executing things, you start to rely on yourself too much. And it's good to have that reminder that your people in your circle can see things that you can't see sometimes, and to have that group, whether it's just with actual business things or even like personal things. Sometimes they can see the burnout that's happening in you before you see it in yourself, and they can give you advice and help. So none of us are an island. So yeah, I would always say keep that community close as you continue to grow.
Wow, great insights. That's one of the best pieces of advice for self-care, and also the guidance that we need as business owners and entrepreneurs. And that's such a great nugget of knowledge, and personally experienced. You talked about the uniqueness of your space and the programs that you've created in the different areas on your farm. Can you share with us a couple of your you have so many unique programs, and we're going to have Jessie share where everyone can actually go and learn about Jessie's services and programs and events. But can you tell us about maybe one or two of what you think is the sort of most unique programs that you offer at Farm Girl Fitness that maybe would entice people to come visit you and experience it?
Yes, we'd love to see everybody. One of the things that we started with, which again kind of came out of necessity, is one of our programs called Farmers Chores, which is now our version of outdoor boot camp. So when when we're indoors doing boot camp, we've got tools like battle ropes and things like that, the regular stuff. But when we first started running classes, we were very limited on what we could get for equipment. As many fitness people can appreciate, the cost of weights was excessive once COVID kicked in. And it was hard to find in the first place. And I was not willing to spend $4 to $5 a pound on dumbbells. And I was trying to find multiple pieces of equipment because I needed everybody to have their own thing. We couldn't interchange equipment. So one day I was baling hay with my dad, which involves me sitting in the back of a truck and grabbing hay bales and pulling them up into the truck. And I said to myself, this should just be a workout. I could just charge money for people to come and help us bale hay. And we kind of looked at each other and it was like, no, really, I think we could make this a workout. And so that's kind of how Farmers Chores came about. And that's kind of our thing here is we don't worry about how things look. We just worry about working hard and feeling good when you work hard. And, farmers are some of the most in shape people you'll ever meet in your life. They're up early, they work until the job is done, and they could just give, 2 cents about how it looks and the process rather. And so with us, we started looking around the farm. What do we have that we could use? So we had hay bales, we had tractor tires, we had sledgehammers, wheelbarrows, wood logs, pieces of wood. My husband, again, being very handy, we found a way to make makeshift handles on the wood logs, and we use those for farmers' carries and all kinds of other things. Wood stumps we used as for step-ups. We made sit-up benches out of trees from our own property. It didn't cost us a dime. It looked really cool. It did look cool. And people would pick up the wood logs and say, how much does this weigh? And I'm like, I don't know, just pick it up and go. But it got the job done, and it's kind of become our claim to fame, and it's the class I look forward to bringing back in the springtime for sure. The other class that became really popular and kind of our signature is forest bathing. So when I told my dad about this idea of forest bathing, he looked at me very strangely, and he's like, are people getting naked in the forest? No, Dad, nobody's getting naked. Clothes are staying on. Forest bathing, if you look it up, feel free to, research it after this, but it's actually an ancient Japanese practice. That term forest bathing was not made up by me, but rather it's the idea of immersing yourself in the forest and in nature. And we're very fortunate to sit on top of the Niagara Escarpment, and we have a beautiful forest as part of our farm that has water running through it and just a beautiful kind of bed of trilliums in the spring and just gorgeous in the fall. And during COVID, we as a family used the forest a lot to have friends over and to be outside so that we could follow all the rules, but just for our own kind of sanity to get out of the house and be outdoors. And I realized I need to share this with my people in my group because we were starting to see the benefits and how being outside was helping people. And so for us, it's a little 1 kilometer walk into the forest. I do some gentle stretch, really simple stretch, just to kind of get people to start to relax. We do about 20 minutes of guided breath work, and then we do about 15 to 20 minutes of just straight quiet in the forest. People can choose how they take that in, either laying down, sitting up, whatever's comfortable. And people often fall asleep, which is the best. I love it when that happens. And then I have to wake them back up and gradually take them out of that. And then we hike back out. And we use that a lot actually with our corporate events, team building events. Anybody can do it. And it's just a beautiful way to reset and use nature as a way to help us with that.
Oh, wow. And a perfect time of year to talk about forest bathing when we think about reset and renewal and rebirth and, re-energizing your body, your mind, your emotional health. And it's the ultimate self-care. I mean, I'm like, okay, I got to make a date with you to come and experience forest bathing. And thanks for defining it for us, because I know some people out there still think, and I actually know someone that does forest bathing not far from me, but they are naked.
Okay.
Anyways, to each his own. All right. Well, perfect segue, Jessie. I wanted to ask you questions about 3 areas of self-care that I feel are critical for helping move people forward. And for those who haven't caught my recent blog, and it's all about how to move your self care, your self development, and your self empowerment forward, and how that can help create change. So if you haven't caught that blog, check it out on my website, mohagan.com. I, really go through and share strategies around each of those three areas and how that can help you stay on course with your 2024 goals. And of course, being a new season, it's could perhaps be the first part of your Q2 of your fiscal year, or your calendar year, in which is a perfect time to renew your goals as it is. One thing that's really critical that I have found is as we get underway with our goals for the year, many of us stumble or hit roadblocks. There are obstacles that prevent us from moving forward. And I'm going to just admit, for me, it's a weakness, and my weakness that holds me back from, really getting after my goals. And it's not what you think. It's not like it's fear or it's, laziness. It's actually procrastination. And I do admit that I can procrastinate. And I'll tell you why. It's, procrastination is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a behavioral habit that we get into. It's because I'm very entrepreneurial and creative. And after the creative piece, I don't like doing detail. I don't like the detail of seeing it through to the finish. I just want to keep moving on to the next opportunity and really inspire my team to, align their strengths to do the detail. And so that's the one tip for procrastinators is find the strategies that will help you move beyond that or in spite of that. And for me, I actually found that if I focus on my self-care, my self-development, and understanding how procrastination, why it happens and how I can work through it, and then how I can empower myself so that when those times of procrastination hit for me, I know how to get out of my funk. I call it that. And it's interesting because we've been talking about the people in our lives that help support us. My assistant, Emily, is like the rock star of how to stay on task. And so she's been my sort of accountability partner for procrastination. So that's another strategy. But Jessie, I've shared a little bit about what my weakness or tendency can be on my pursuit for, moving myself forward and creating the change I desire. I'd love you to share if you have discovered within yourself something that stands in your way. And if so, what strategy, what one thing have you found in either of those areas? I'm going to dive in a moment and ask you specifically, but have you discovered something that stands in your way? And if so, what have you learned about yourself to help you move through it?
I think the simplest way to say it is that it is fear. And I think a lot of us say that and kind of leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned, especially of course, all through these last few years, but right before I made the decision to kind of go into our business full tilt, I remember really struggling with a few different fears. And I decided to write those fears down and make them very, very specific. Because if we just say I'm afraid and leave it at that, then that fear is legit and it stays and nobody can talk you out of it, including yourself. But I was afraid of things like making the wrong decision. Okay, take that further. What does that mean? I'm afraid of making the wrong decision and losing money. Okay, what does that mean? Who would that affect? And I kept kind of forcing myself, because I do this with my clients. When they say they can't do something or they're afraid of something, I'm just that person in their life who keeps asking them why. I'm like a 2-year-old until they get to the root of it. And I had to turn around and do that on myself. I was afraid of perhaps losing friendships. In order for me to start this business officially, like go right fully into it, it meant having to let go of my old job. And that was scary. that was really scary. I had developed old friendships and people that I loved and respected and admired, and I was afraid of what they were going to think. I was afraid of what other people were going to think. So I had to write down what the fears were, but then I made another column that said, but what's the truth? Like, what's the
Ooh.
facts? Fear and facts. And I'm really happy that I actually saved that piece of paper. I found it a little while ago, and I'm so grateful that I saved it, because I think I might frame it one day and put it somewhere in the office here. I don't know. But the ability to write down what the facts were, not what you think maybe could happen, what do you know to be true? And that
Mm.
led me to override the fear big time. Suddenly the fear became really obvious that it was in essence making things up that hadn't happened yet, versus what do you really know? So, the fear of what will people think? Well, what are the facts? What do I know? I know that I'm friends with these people in the first place because they're really good people. And I know that if somebody would judge me on something like this, they're probably not my friend in the first place. That's a fact.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Be reasonable about it. And of course, sure enough, those people in my life continue to be cheerleaders for me. People that I used to work with and things like that, they still send me messages and shout outs and encourage me, and it all worked out, right? So fear versus facts is probably the biggest thing to get me over those humps. And I do that now too. I still have fear, probably a big fear of just making the right decision all the time. My procrastination is kind of like a decision paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
So many decisions or possibilities that could come that I end up just not making any decision.
Yeah.
And so again, kind of recognizing where your traits are and then just finding tools that work for you to override that so that you can just really stick with reality.
Wow. That is incredible. Honestly, I know people's approach to fear, and I've heard the definition: fear being false expectations appearing real. There's some other acronym definitions. We'll leave it at that. But I loved how you did that fear fact, and you kept asking why. And it may be a 2-year old habit behavior, but it is the best way to get to the root cause. But it's also a phenomenal tool for getting to people's deeper why,
Yeah.
by just asking why. Why is that important? Why is that important to you? Why? And it just gets people to that emotional level. So you peeled it away to really find and see the true fact and come to those realizations. And it's so wonderful you kept it. That's a powerful thing in itself, to go back and see what you discovered about yourself and know what you're capable of. I mean, that is, I feel like you just discovered the Wonder Woman within you. Hey, thank you. That was so great. I hope everyone really took from that the enthusiasm or the inspiration to really reflect on your own traits and what could possibly be your roadblock, and what is it that you're going to move through your tools and strategies that you gain or you realize are your strengths, to overcome what your that kryptonite or weakness is for you. So we're going to do a little rapid round here, Jessie, to before we wrap up. I mentioned earlier that I focus on 3 areas of how we can work within ourselves to move forward and create the change that we desire. And they were self-care, self-development, and self-empowerment. So I'd love to ask you quickly, first question: how do you balance your self-care, or what do you do for self-care as a businesswoman and fit pro, that maybe helps you through some of your obstacles or funks that you might find yourself in?
Yeah, this is a good question because, and I think for all of us, hopefully, it's an ongoing journey of trying to figure this out. When you're in the fitness business, you are most likely in the business because you just have this love of helping other people and you love seeing their success and their progress. And those are amazing things and a great quality to have. But it's also a job in an industry where you're giving constantly. And I know for me, going through these last few years, especially, everything was about what I could put back into the people I was serving, but also back into the business to be able to help more people. And To be honest, at the beginning, it was very fun and exciting, and it still is. But there was a time, probably about a year or two into the business, where it was becoming very obvious that I wasn't taking care of myself. Went through multiple health problems between 21 and 22, especially, that were definitely a reflection of the stress that was going on in my body, and definitely had some wake up calls with that. That could be a whole episode to itself. And I think for Fit Pros, we get used to seeing it in other people or the things that we could fix in others, but we just hate to look at it for ourselves. And so for me, I had to really stop and ask myself, why am I not making time for my self-care before I could even define what it is that I need to fill that cup? I had to be like, why are you fighting this? Like, why? Because again, the easy answer is I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't have this. I don't have that. Like those are those simplistic answers. But I had to do kind of like, let's keep going here. Why is it that sitting still, why are you fighting it? And I came to realize that I did kind of have this thing in the back of my personality, and not to blame dear old dad, but it could be because of coming from kind of that entrepreneurial background where I really was. I was raised in a family and in a life where it's like, you got time, go do something with it. Like just you gotta keep going. And in the thick of COVID with a new business, that seems like a good mentality to have. And every time there was a setback, I remember saying to myself, like, I don't have time to be sad. I really don't. Have your cry, get it out of your system, and then you got to keep going. And that felt like it worked for a while, but inevitably you get to a point where it doesn't. And so I started to realize that my reason for not taking self-care was because I thought it made me look lazy, which I can laugh about now.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my husband, even because I do all my own social media and all stuff like that. So most of my life is spent on my phone. And I remember saying to my husband, like, I know it looks like I'm not doing anything, but I really am. He's like, why are you telling me this? And I'm like, because I don't want you to think that I'm not doing, that I'm not working. And he's like, I didn't ask you about this. And I started to hear myself, and I started to realize that that's what I was fighting against. So I had to kind of redefine what self-care meant for me. Self-care is not selfish, all those good things. And I had to start saying, okay, phone goes off at a certain time. Make plans for yourself, set things in your calendar that you look forward to and that excite you. Try to make those plans with other people that excite you and inspire you, so that you can't kind of work your way out of them. So I have some plans coming up this month with people in my life. And for that reason, my self-care was about you have to block the time. Otherwise, what happens to me is I wake up at 7, or I have a client at 7, and before you know it, you're working until 7:00 at night. And you can't keep going like that. So self-care for me, can be as simplistic as going for lunch with my friend that I have not seen in a long time, but I had to do the work beforehand to realize why I was fighting it, and then be willing to put it in the calendar and feel good about it.
Oh, key, feeling good about it. And I confess, because I do self-care, but I feel guilty at times. I should be back to work. I should be working. I have my inside voice thinking that people think I'm slacking off, and I have to, justify I'm working. So thank you for being so candid about that, and realizing that, self-care is not selfish. And I'll share my tip quickly. We'll move to the next is I bookend my day, because, I learned in some course I took that, we always blame time, but everybody has the same whatever minutes of the day in 24 hours. It's how you choose to spend that time, those minutes. But nobody can take away from the way you start your day and the way you end your day. So read my blog, friends. I share how I bookend my day with self-care, and it has been a game changer for all aspects of how I feel, how I look, and how I perform. So I'll leave it at that. Jessie, how do you balance your self-development as a businesswoman and Fit Pro? You did say that during the time of lockdown, you actually invested in your learning. But often as entrepreneurs and business owners, we are so busy working in our business, we don't take time to work on our business. So,
Mm.
what is your strategy for balancing self development with being a business owner?
Yeah, again, the first couple of years of owning a business was one thing, but we're in a different spot now, and for me, it's now looking at the year as a whole, planning out my year, looking ahead. When we were in the thick of COVID, I couldn't do that, or at least I felt like I couldn't, because everything was changing constantly. And that was part of the reason why it was so hard and so sad at times. Every single plan I made got shot down. And I kind of taught myself to not look at forward to things and not plan things. And we all know that that's not good for our psyche. So now we're in a spot where we can look ahead, plan ahead. And for me, if I'm looking at my calendar year and there's all this stuff to do with the business and with these things, but there's nothing in that calendar year for me in my development, that's not good. Something's got to give. And conferences are back, which is amazing in person. And I look forward to conferences so much. So already looking forward to CanFit Pro in Toronto in August. Can't wait. Always come away from conferences. For me, they fill my cup and my self-development, in particular for the fitness industry and for my business. But, we can also look at self-development even outside of our business. So if we're only ever doing things just business, well, what are we doing for our personal, for our spiritual, are we setting aside time? If you look ahead for your calendar year and there isn't something in there for those things, the year will fill up with other stuff. It just will. So for me, self-development has been having to look ahead, make plans, and look at all the things that can be development, business development, personal growth and development, and perhaps spiritual too.
Beautiful. I love what you said. Plan ahead. Plan ahead, because when we get there, we're going to find reasons to be too busy and put it off. And before you know it, the year is come and gone. So great advice and perfectly timed, as CanFit Pro has just launched registration for CanFit Pro Global. That's where you'll be able to join Jessie and learn more from Jessie. We're going to ask one more question and then wrap up, where we can get to know how to find you. And then I'll tell you all about something that Jessie's going to be involved in this summer at CanFit Pro Global, where you can meet Jessie in person. Last question, Jessie, is how do you balance your self-empowerment as a businesswoman at Fit Pro? And just really quickly, what would that balancing self-empowerment mean to you, and how do you go about it?
The simple answer is manage your energy, protect your energy. I like to pick words for New Year's, and in 2023, energy was my word. And I came to realize that, even what you take in through social media, if you catch yourself scrolling and you come across somebody's page that just makes you feel bad about yourself, or that you don't feel good when you're reading it, stop following that person. Do an audit every once in a while. Protect the energy around you by making sure your circle is full of people that help you feel empowered. And also mentorship. And I know, Mo, you talked about this in your last blog, that idea of having people in your life. Again, conferences for me have been really helpful for that, connecting with people. And I'm very grateful that I made some great connections over the last year, especially by just having people in your life to be able to reach out to and say, hey, this is what's on my mind right now, or this is what's on my heart, or this is where I'm getting stuck. Mentors can see things that you can't. They can see opportunities or gaps that you can't see, and they can help you to be a better version of yourself. And all by protecting that energy. Remember, you're in charge of it. There's nothing around you that you can't control. And so just protect it for all it's worth, because if that energy diminishes, there goes your environment. So keep your energy up by protecting the people around you.
Oh, brilliant. Oh my gosh. 10 out of 10, girl. Great lessons. And I would love I feel like there's a need to write a whole article around what we've talked about today. There is my creative brain off on side note. So I'm going to follow up with you on that. Tell us, my friend, how we can find you, learn more about your facility and programs, And if you're not on a beach in Hawaii, where is it that people will find you?
Yeah, just back from vacation, feeling rested. But if I'm not on the beach in Hawaii, you can find me. Website is farmgirlfitness.ca. Instagram is the same handle, farmgirlfitness.ca. Most active on Instagram. We do have a Facebook group as well too, and I'm trying to get my butt going on TikTok, but we're getting there. Those are the best ways to find us. We have memberships, but we do drop in classes as well. So if you're just visiting us one time, just want to come in and see what we do, feel free to join us. But I'd love to hear from people. Feel free to reach out.
Oh, wonderful. And again, Farm Girl Fitness is in Halton Hills in Ontario. It's right off the 401, and it's a great destination to break up a long trip. So if you're traveling west or east on the busiest highway in the country, and I heard North America, then a good, not an excuse, but a great step towards embracing nature and a cool way to work out with an incredible individual along with your team, Jessie. So for those who would like to meet up with Jessie, you can find her at least in the fitness industry officially, formally, however you want to say it. We have a date for August 9th and 10th, ChemFit Pro Global in Toronto. Jessie will be honored as the 2023 Sharon Mann Inspiration Award recipient. You'll be handing out the 2024 award in memory of Sharon Mann. And then you will be joining me and a lot of incredible fellow female leaders in the industry with a very special panel called Empowering Leadership, a tribute to women who lead and influence. And that will be one of our many incredible special panels, a part of ChemFit Pro Global. You can go to chemfitpro.com/events or /global and see the event. Stay tuned for Schedule a Glance coming up very soon, where you can actually see all the great sessions with over 180 sessions to choose from, 100 presenters to learn from. And on that note, I just want to close off by reminding you all that if you haven't yet gotten started on your 2024 journey to change, growth, self-care, development, and self-empowerment, then do go to my blog. And also you can download my 2024 guide to move your self-care, self-development, and self-empowerment forward to create change this year. And look under what's new. That's where you can find the guide. So I want to bring Jessie back on screen, and I want to close with one of my favorite quotes. And I actually have been saying this quote for decades: if nothing changes, nothing changes. And I feel like that's part of the learning from great coaches like Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins, and the famous Jim Rohn. But I actually discovered today that that's only part of the quote. And that quote is actually by a woman by the name of Courtney C. Stevens. And here's how it goes, and here's how we'll close. Remember, if nothing changes, then nothing changes. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. You want change? Make some. Again, by Courtney C. Stevens. And I think that's just a fantastic way to close off. Thank you so much, Jessie. Thank you all for your time. And here's to you. Cheers to you for taking the lessons learned here and stepping into your renewal and your review of 2024. Keep moving yourself forward, everyone. Change is power. And with power comes the opportunities that you have. So thank you. And thank you, Jessie. You are a blessing and wonderful to speak with you today.
Great to chat with you. Can't wait to see you at ChemFit Pro.